Friday class. Even though my face can't really be shifted, I'm patient. How y'all doing, family? You not you ill. Sponsored by moorishregency.com, moorish.com. Listen to some tunes that you picked up on willofallah.com. I believe this is that Wild album. I'm tired of looking through the eyes of the same minded eyes. My lies found me trapped with temptation. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I fear I'm about to fall. Like in fear when I'm hard to yawn. In the dark, I see fear, I see flares as I hear the roar. My fears keep straying from the Lord. Some things I'm praying for, better days. Celebrate with real family holidays. Like all the days I slept. Gotta seize that, gotta ease back, gotta clean my mess. Back to reality, what do I see? It's the man JB. Now, I'm looking it up right in the hood. My soldiers living every day to the fullest. Feel no man, just loading my bullets. It's like a jungle sometimes. It make me wonder how I resist the urge to pull it. My trigger, my lick though we don't play, but we gotta teach the youth the truth to live a better way. War equals I don't want to kill too much time. You know what I mean? Let me make sure I got some people up in here. So now we take things a little more serious. No cop or judge instilling fear in us. We the gods on earth. Since birth we learned to put God first. Stay blessed up. Music on the turf, stay vest up. The ongoing cycle of a young buck. The unit full of G's, no 50 cent. It's GCP, the streets know. And as I sit back and recollect on past times when I was too young to handle, trying to avoid the guilty crimes. I used to just write lyrics and bubbling beats was on my mind. It's all about having fun. So if you're not your ears for Friday class, you just getting everything together, man. I had those feelings to 93 from 89, and I hated school, though I thought it was necessary. I've naggers left. I'm on the hot block daily, and I seen nothing blatantly happen in my face, and it hurts like a bitch, and those memories I can't erase. Try not to dwell on the past.
So a lot we gotta catch up on, a lot going on.
It's not a wise inquiry, need to turn a new page, start a new chapter in this book called The Stage. We ain't afraid of the
what's up? Peace and love.
Mine, you got captured, your brain's already in a cage.
Peace and love. Just a point of order right quick. If you could, you know, make sure you turn off your audio in the video for me, just to save the bandwidth and to keep everything, you know, even for everybody else. Even Steven, as they say. But towards the end, we'll open the floor back up for questions and comments. But I'm gonna let this. Alright, so we're gonna go and get it started. It's 6:34. Try to go till about, you know, 8:30 Eastern Standard. Again, I'm Nunaji Ill. This is the Friday class. Alright, we got Sister Barbara Bay in the house. It's live. Alright. So yeah, we got a lot of things going on. A lot of stuff been going on in the background. You know, we had to take some time out, take care of some things, make sure that everything is going the way it needs to be going. You know how that is as far as your personal life and things of that sort. But yeah, so we're getting into a new cycle, y'all. It's not quite 2017. Unless you've been following the Gregorian calendar, but you know, it's going back to that ancient mindset. I knew it really don't start till March. You know, because when spring has sprung and all of that good stuff. So didn't want to get too much into that, but we might delve into a little bit more metaphysics later on today. But today I really wanted to try to focus and harp on the issues at hand, family. And one of the biggest ones that we've seen, and you know, working here, doing the amazing work that we're able to do over here at Moorish Directing at moors.com. We have a very special seat, so to speak, when it comes to seeing and hearing the different goings-ons of the peoples, you know, within the nation. Because as so often is the case that we find when we're assisting and helping one another, is that we are on the front line, so to speak, of the issues that are, affecting us all, right? So with that, I wanted to kind of back up, so to speak, because we've been talking about it for the past year and a half, 2 years, or longer, depending on how long you've been studying and keeping up with the activities and goings-ons of Moors and active Moors in particular. We've been talking about this wonderful world of trust and trust law, right? And in that, there are numerous pitfalls. There's all types of leverage, so to speak. But at the end of the day, what is it that you're really doing? What is it that you're dealing with? You know what I mean? And to really have a good conversation about that, I could sit here and read everything that we've got up and go through all of that rigmarole, but that's not really what I think would be best for us right now. Being that it's up there, everybody's grown, we can kind of get through that how we want to. But somebody dipped out for that. But if we're having issues, or if it gets a little choppy, just let me know in the chat, and I'll reset on my end, and we'll go from there. Try to make sure that everything's smooth on you guys end, because I'm gonna be doing a lot of back and forth with the screen sharing. So I want to make sure that you guys are up with me in the classroom here. All right. So just everybody who hasn't already checked in, just let me know in the chat who you are, where you're from, type stuff, just so I have an idea who I'm talking to, if you will. And if you can't find the chat, it's the little bubble at the bottom right hand corner, typically, depending on what you're looking at it on or how you're viewing this. But anyway, that's just housekeeping work. So let me back up, because I wanted to get into some special things, some special matters that I think we had to touch on. And I often don't do certain things for the sake of time, but being that we are going through these trying times, some of this stuff is going to be rehashed for some of you Moors. For the rest of you Moors, it may be something new that you're hearing, and either way, we need to be paying attention. So we've got hold on, Islam. Peace. You in the class yet? Or you trying to get in? Send you the link. All right. Just check the background, but I'll send it to you right quick. All right, bet. Peace. All right. So we got one more trying to get in. Trying to make sure that he gets in. He said he might have something for you guys. So we've got, all right, Betty O'Gale out in Tennessee area. Peace. Pia Tamosi. All right. Islam Nisha Bay in the house. All right. Everybody check it in on time. All right. So I'm waiting on Brother Nasir to get in so that he can participate with us this evening. But while we're waiting on him to try to get in, because that was him that just called me, while waiting on him, I want to read some things into the record, get some stuff out there and up into the ethers. And like I said, this is something that is supposed to be read at every meeting, and like I said, I don't typically do it because of the sake of time, and because we all pretty much should know this by now if we're active and been paying attention in Islam. But all right, so this is from the divine warning by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Prophet warns all Muslim governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. Right? Says, I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. Islam? Alright, just had to mute that person out right quick. Alright, oh, we got a full house. Alright, that's who it is. Alright, and just for housekeeping purposes, guys and gals, if you're, wanting to view and everything, just mute yourself out and cut the video for a minute, as it takes up on the bandwidth, and it cuts out on the experience for everybody else that's in the room with us. So if you could, just kind of self-manage that for me. Thank you, guys and gals. Thank you. And Brother Nasir, if you're in the building, just text me or whatever, or type me in the chat so I'll know, and I'll kind of come through and see who's who based on that. All right. So we've got a couple people typing. So we're reading it from the part of Divine, one from the Prophet. Sorry, guys, for those who listen to me reading. All right, so he said he's in here. Islam, is that you? All right, maybe not. Islam, is this you? Okay, was it the first one? Check. Unmute yourself, please. 'Cause I got two. All right, now I see which one now. Islam, Brother Nasir?
Yeah, Islam.
Islam, all right, cool. Got you in there.
I'm trying to brighten up.
Yeah, please get some more light on me, please, while I'm finishing this. So, all right, all true Moors, let me back up. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, if they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in. Let me mute you out right quick, Nasir. They should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways, by order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. All right, so let me open up the floor. Brother Nasir, you still there? Islam? Got the background noise. Taking care of some house cleaning duties, I'm sure. As always, while we waiting for him to get back to the floor, just in the chat, I want you guys just let me know from the last class to this class. Have you guys been paying attention? Have have these classes been helpful for you guys? Have you been learning anything? That sort of stuff. And then, as you guys are letting me know that, and we're waiting on Brother Nasir to come back to the floor, I want to touch on some other things from this How to Study, right? From rvbaypublications.com. And this is part of the Civic Science and Heritage class. I just want to go through some things. So, right quick, on the back, and this is just, a moment of observation here. Civic Science Heritage class. Let me just show you guys the back where I'm about to read so you guys can see it here. All All right. Studying all information, taking my time with the dictionaries and references. That's what we like to hear. And really, if you take your time, you'll pick up more. We'll touch on that a little bit more later. But on the back here it says Moors are the direct descendants of the ancient Moabites, the true aboriginal and indigenous natural peoples who inhabited the northwest and southwest continents, lands of ancient Amexem, Almaroc, now called the Americas, north, central, south, and the adjoining islands Americana. Through the artificial reconstruction of historical writings, the Dark Period, these natural peoples and their lands have been renamed or rebranded to confuse the natural people concerning the true geographical locations of their native lands, which are under European siege, known as colonization. Moors are bound to the continents or the Americas by heritage and by birthright. Islam. And kind of getting into it, something that I think that a lot of Moors are missing, or at least some bodies of study and background that may be pertinent going forward as we develop and grow within this Moorish paradigm, this Moorish Renaissance that we're all in here, being in 2017 Gregorian calendar year. And before I read that part, let me back up and just read this part from page 6 here, based on from the How to Study and Conscious State of Mind precepts. All right, thank you. Welcome back, Brother Nasir. Page 6, Islam. Page 6 kind of starts out with some talking about critical analysis, right? So then it goes on to say, these precept study principles and rules are a part of primal, general, and highly useful standards that are set as a minimal guideline. Keep that in mind, minimal guideline, and used for facilitating elementary studies among the conscious and active Moors of America. They are especially emphasized for those who are associated with or who have studied with the Moorish nationals who are loyal to the Moorish missionary cause. And there's emphasis on those who are loyal to the Moorish missionary cause, because this is, as the prophet said, a great missionary work of a Rotarian complexion, and I'll get to that language in a second too, for the doubters and naysayers. But such primal precepts are also promoted and maintained among the keepers of the well-known civic protocols of those associated with the Moors' Order of the Round Table, quote, quote, and others who have taken up the charge. So not just those of the Moors' Order of the Round Table, but others who have taken up the charge and responsibility to enforce the Republic's Constitution and treaties, right? And I read that part to emphasize the next piece that we're going to go into, that has wonderfully been passed along to me by our, excellent expert researcher, and one of the baddest studious Moors I know, Taj Tariq Bey, has passed along yet another jewel for the people to take a bit, take a bite from, and really meditate on this. All right, because it's going to impact and touch a vast array of issues. All right, and Taj has talked about this again and again in past classes, but we oftentimes, for most Moors, we're tactile learners, or we're visual, so we need something in our hands to look at or to touch or to see, to kind of wrap our minds around the concept. And amongst the round table of Moors that I've been building with, the general consensus about Lincoln is that he was, as for all intents and purposes, the last constitutionally Republican president that we know of our era, so to speak. And pardon me if I'm maybe misquoting or some of the details, but it's my personal understanding from my studies that, based on how the Constitution was written and how things were supposed to go, one big thing that Lincoln catches a lot of flack for, and that I have found to be one of the biggest reasons that he was murdered ultimately and assassinated, was partly in most part was his work with the greenbacks, right? And his understanding and overstanding of the Constitution to the degree that it being commerce can only be sustained, maintained, supported, and lawfully carried on according to the Constitution's, edicts based on lawful gold and silver, right? And then when you look at certain articles in the Constitution and certain statutes, it will outline to you the weights, measures, and delineations of this gold and silver that is supposed to be the basis of currency, right, for the people to use for their economic, enjoyment, benefit, and all that good stuff. Islam. And with that move of creating and establishing the greenback, he was moving the government through executive powers and other, plenary powers that the president and his executive office, was able to maintain, to try to reposition the government back to a more constitutionally favorable position, right? In that he recognized that by that point there were a group of people that were operating within the government, and as quiet as it's kept, most of them considered themselves to be Whigamores, right? Who were wearing the wigs and carrying on the business of Moors, because if you back up 50 or 60 years, they had just kicked the Moors out. All right. Once they did that, they were able to clear a space, because nature abhors a vacuum. They were able to clear a space within the legislative body of government that allowed for these insurrectionists and quote-unquote southern slaveholders that you will often find that slipped in and started taking over the government from the legislative point of view. All right. And these bodies of people later would become the different sides in opposition for your civil war, that to this very day has been bubbling over and continuing, bubbling over and continuing, bubbling over and continuing, all the way up into the present day in various forms. And without getting into the various shells and whatnot, I just want to yield the floor to Brother Nasir for any comments and thoughts that he may be having, because I see the wheels turning as I pull up some other information to get into. Brother Nasir, do you have something you want to speak on?
Islam. No, not really. I just wanted to say thank you again for having me on the platform. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for coming.
From the onset.
Indeed.
Happy holy day to the Moors out there as well.
Islam. Happy holy day to all Moors.
Hey.
All right. So, was anything else?
Yeah, I ain't really have too much to say. I'm really anxious to build on this trust situation.
Okay. So
I'll yield the floor, bro.
Islam, indeed. Thank you. So before we get into the basics and really start diving into it, I just want to hit a couple more things, just to make you guys think, and to keep it together. Thank you for muting me out. I'll leave it open so you can jump back in when you get ready, Nasir. So Mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood of the East, right? This is chapter 9, I believe. Yeshua receives, no, this is chapter 14. Yeah. Chapter 14, Yeshua receives the mystic name and number and passed the first brotherhood test. The master took down from the wall a scroll on which was written down the number and name of every attribute, character, and he said, quote, "The circle is the symbol of the perfect man, and the 7 is the number of the perfect man. The Logos is the word perfect, that which creates, that which destroys, and that which saves." Verse 3, "This Hebrew master is the Logos of the Holy One, the circle of the human race. the 7 of the time. And in the record book, the scribe wrote down, quote, the Logos, circle 7, quote, and thus was Yeshua known. 5, the master said, quote, the Logos will give heed to what I said, to what I say. No man can enter into light till he has first found himself. Let me repeat that. The master said, the Logos will give heed to what I said, to what I say. Period. No man can enter into light till he has found himself. Go forth and search till you have found your soul, and then return. All right. And then it goes on to talk about how Joshua, in verse 6, it says, the God led, but I want to emphasize verse 5 for a reason. So the God led Joshua to a room in which, and I'm just going to finish up this chapter just for the sake of reading it. The God led Joshua to a room in which the light was faint and mellow like the light of early dawn. The chamber walls were marked with mystic signs, with hieroglyphs and sacred texts. And in the chamber, Joshua found himself alone, where he remained for many days. So right there, and just because it was hitting me as I was reviewing this, keep in mind that Joshua studied, or Jesus, which is a code word for justice, studied the ancient hieroglyphs and the sacred text. All right? Meaning that we as Moors study everything that's sacred. All the sacred texts from all quote-unquote peoples, we study it because we know that there's a bit of truth in there that we could be able to use and build, further for the nation. But that's just, side thought point and all that good stuff. Verse 8, he read the sacred text throughout the meanings of the hieroglyphs and sought the import of the master's charge to find himself. A revelation came. He got acquainted with his soul. He found himself, and then he was not alone. Verse 10, one night he slept, and at midnight hour a door that he had not observed was open, and a priest in somber garb came in and said, quote, my brother, pardon me for coming in at this unseemly hour, but I have come to save your life. You are the victim of a cruel plot. The priests of Heliopolis are jealous of your fame, and they have said that you will never leave these gloomy crypts alive. The higher priests do not go forth to teach the world, and you are doomed to temple servitude. Now, if you would be free, you must deceive these priests, must tell them you are here to stay for life. And then you have gained all that you wish to gain. I will return, and by a secret way will lead you forth that you may go in peace, end quote. And Yeshua said, quote, my brother man, would you come here to teach deceit? Am I within these holy walls to learn the wells and vial of hypocrisy? Nay, man, my Father scorns deceit, and I am here to do his will. Even Jesus said, no, man. He said, no, man, my Father scorns deceit. My Father hates lying. I'm here to do his will. So it's like, how? Why would I do that? Right? 18, deceive these priests? Right? He's asking the question. Not while the sun shines. What I have said, I have said. I will be true to them, to Allah and to myself. And then the tempter left, and Joshua was again alone. But in a little time, a white-robed priest appeared and said, quote, well done. The Logos has prevailed. This is the trial chamber of hypocrisy, end quote. And then he led the way, and Joshua stood before the judgment seat. 21, verse 21, and all the brothers stood, and the Hierophant came forth and laid hands on Yeshua's head and placed within his hand a scroll on which was written just one word, sincerity. And not a word was said. 22, the God again appeared and led the way in the spacious room, replete with everything a student craves. Was Joshua bade to rest and wait. All right. Audio is good. So, So right there, you know, there's a lot of lessons I'm gonna be touching on and harping back on. So we're gonna keep that fingered. You know, keep our index fingers on that one, and then I want to jump right over from there into estate, and then we're gonna read status, and then we're just gonna talk a little bit. All right. Because today I'm not really trying to touch on too many deep details because we've got plenty of time for that. And I want to make sure that we're taking a good step, you know, in the right direction, not just, you know, a bunch of steps. You follow me? Or a bunch of unnecessary things. So we're going to, I'm looking for the definition of estate in Black's Law 4th edition, as you already know. Here we go. Estate. And this is pretty long. But just right quick, just to kind of give you the Cliff Notes version. For the names and definitions, so I'm just jumping on page 644, right hand side. Original and derivative estates. An original is the first of several estates, bearing to each other the relation of a particular estate and a reversion. An original estate is contrasted with a derivative estate, and a derivative estate is a particular interest carved out of another estate of larger extent, right? Because oftentimes when we talk about states, trust, status, and all that good stuff, we don't understand, you know, when the prophet said we are a part and parcel of this said government, and, you know, we're talking about a state, most of the times when we're talking about our personal estate, based on this particular definition, we're talking about our derivative estate, which is a part of the original estate, if my understanding serves me correctly, all right, based on my studies and all that good stuff. So when we're talking about the derivative estate, we're talking about that estate, pardon me, of our immediate family, right? So that's mama, daddy, you know, sister, brother, cousin, Junebug, and them, right? Grandmama, granddaddy, on mama's side, daddy's side. That would be considered your most immediate family. Now, once you start getting into second and third cousins, you know, that's considered your family more removed, right? But depending on how close your family is and how well y'all talk and all that good stuff, you know, that's that, right? So, and that's just something I just had to get out there, just, you know, for the sake of argument. So, and I'm jumping around here in the definition just to bring out certain things. Of course, do your own research, look it up for yourself in your own time. But let me just back up to the beginning. Like I said, I'm going to be jumping around here because the estate is a long definition here. Estate, the interest which anyone has in lands or in any other subject of property, right? An estate in lands, comma, tenements, comma, and hereditaments signify such interest as the tenant has therein. The condition or circumstance in which the owner stands with regard to his property. Now keep this sentence in mind. I'm going to read it again. The condition or circumstance in which the owner stands. The condition in which the owner stands with regard to his property. Right? In this sense, quote, quote, estate is constantly used in conveyances in connection with the words, quote, right, quote, quote, title, and quote, quote, interest, and is in a great degree synonymous with all of them. So interest, right, and title constantly being used in conveyances, you know, would be synonymous. Right, when you're looking at the conveyance, right? And just because we're talking about conveyances, and I don't believe I've defined this, we haven't really talked about conveyances too much, but I just want to define it for you guys, you know, for the sake of argument, because, you know, we don't want to skip over anything. And if you guys can get to it before I find it, definitely drop it in the chat. But conveyance, I think I got it. Conventional conveyance. So in pleading, so let's just back up and look at first what conversion is, right? Conversion, equity. So that's the body of law that we're typically dealing with when we're talking about equity. And when we're talking about equity, typically we're talking about chancery or, civil things or civil matters, right? Go back, do your research on these words, look at the etymology, and you'll, figure that out. Anyway, the exchange of property from real to personal or from personal to real, which takes place under some circumstances in the consideration of the law, such as to give effect to directions in a will or settlement or to stipulations in a contract, although no such change has actually taken place, right? And by which exchange the property so dealt with becomes invested with the properties and attributes of that into which it is supposed to be, is supposed to have been converted, right? So we'll just figure that out on our own time, but I think you'll get more of that as we understand what convey means. So convey, to pass or transmit the title to property from one to another, to transfer property or the title to property by deed, right, or instrument under seal. So a deed or instrument under seal, right, used properly in sense of a sign, sale, or transfer. Convey relates property to the disposition of real property, not to personal. So the convey relates properly to the disposition of real property, not to personal, right? So that's a distinction that needs to be made. To convey real estate is, by an appropriate instrument, to transfer the legal title to it from the present owner to another, right? So then getting to the ultimate word we were looking for, conveyance in pleading. So this is in pleading, introduction or inducement. In real property law, so a conveyance in pleading is introduction or inducement. Introduction or inducement can be in conveyance. So when they give you these verbal contracts or these written contracts, they kind of have this introductory language saying that, this is what we're doing today. Or, they say that we are so-and-so, corporate body, court of law, and we're here today on so-and-so matters, of the green beans from Jack and the Beanstalk, all right? Is Jack here? And then you say, and they'll ask you, do you understand? And then they'll ask, is Jack present? And then when you say here or present, and you don't qualify your answer, or you haven't previously been studying and putting in your writs, right? What you say, what you speak, is binding in terms of being introduced to the body of law that they're trying to enact and adjudicate upon you, and or being induced by contractual obligations to uphold certain duties as a citizen, right? Citizens, if you haven't been doing your research, is a public office, right? And shouts out to Barry for letting everybody know about that one. Some of you may know him as former President Obama, soon to be, or President Obama, soon to be former president. But and then there's a lot of other stuff we could get into, but we're gonna try to stay the task today. So you've also got fraudulent conveyances, and you want to look up fraudulent, but absolute and conditional conveyance, right? Well, let me back up. So in real property, in the strict legal sense, a transfer of legal title to land. Just talking about conveyance again. In the popular sense, and as generally used by lawyers, it denotes any transfer of title, legal or equitable. Right? The transfer of the title of land from one person or class of persons to another. An instrument in writing under seal, anciently termed an assurance, quote, quote, An assurance. Let's keep that word in mind. Anciently, they were known as assurance. It was a term known as an assurance. The instrument was known as an assurance, by which some estate or interest in lands is transferred from one person to another, right? Such as a deed, mortgage, etc. Right? And Brother Nasi, are you there? If you're around, please, step back to the floor, because there was something that you were mentioning before. Now, recall, if you will, what you said to me the other day about what you were looking up and you found about warranty deeds and what their operation is.
Oh, yes. Now, man, these people are cunning, and what shows their cunningness, and not only their cunningness, but their intent to do harm. All right? By the documentation that they produce. All right? Now, man, they're just backdooring the people. All right? Now, dealing with deeds, all right? Dealing with common law deeds, there needs to be certain criteria met in order for the deed, all right, to be enforceable. All right? And one of the major instances that needs to occur is that the seller or the grantor, all right, must have legal interest, can show legal interest, all right, and actually have legal interest in the property to convey it or to sell it or to transfer interest. All right? And the receiving party, all right, or the
buyer,
the grantee or the buyer, all right, must have the legal capacity to accept the property and to hold it.
Say that again.
Yeah, the buyer of the deed, all right, and the sheriff sells deeds. What's really going on now in most of the corporate jurisdictions? What's really going on is the sheriff sell deeds, and what they're really called are bidding and sale deeds. All right, but you asked me to say it again, and the buyer must have the legal capacity to accept the property and hold the property. All right. So, with the bidding and sale deeds, what they call sheriff sale deeds, all right, they don't have a warranty on them. All right, and what a warranty is, dealing with the deeds, what a warranty is that the person who's selling the property, all right, even if it's an agent, all right, which the sheriff acts as, even though he's a constitutional officer, all right, but you gotta tell him that though, all right, you gotta let him know from the right, hey, you're a constitutional officer, you can't be working for these foreign corporations as a third party. Trying to say, hey, you're the sheriff and you selling stuff because of a fraudulent tax lien or, a municipal claim. And municipal claim is dealing with your natural resources, the gas, the water.
Yep.
All right. That's how they backdoor the people by saying that, here, just for example, just diverting off topic somewhat, but as an example, the corporate city of Philadelphia. Actually, you don't even have to really say corporate city of Philadelphia, because once you say city of Philadelphia
or town,
it's a municipal corporation.
Yeah. Once you start talking about, because what you're getting at too, not see if I'm not mistaken, is the fact, and this is for those who are just joining us. Whenever you start talking about a city, a town, And unfortunately, most of the counties, though the counties are supposed to be constitutional, they've made certain contracts with these corporations to where they've now corporatized the body politics that is supposed to be for the people. Correct.
Activity.
And so with that, when like you said, whenever you start naming town or city of, and that indicates municipality, and the fact that you're talking about municipality indicates the fact that you're talking about foreign corporations, correct? By definition. Islam? I yield the floor. You muted out.
Yeah, from the drive. So if you get any type of documentation forwarded to you or conveyed to you, as you just said in the definition, all right, you should already know who they are from the rip, you know? So the position of a constitutional government official is coming at you, or, conveyed something to you as a demand or, some type of response or whatever, you should already know who they are and how they operate. And how we got to get this thing back in line by being competent and operating in our proper persons. But with the bidding and sales deeds, they don't have warranties. And the warranties must express that the seller actually has, interest in the property to where as though they can show legal title and have legal title. All right? And the buyer, because they're at a share of sales, all right, because they're there, they already know that it's a warranty deed. I mean, it has no warranty. All right? So there's risk there that they're taking. All right? And they're taking the risk of, someone stealing something from them. Because the people don't have, or who's ever conveying the property to you don't, or the land, should I say, not even the property, it's the land, which the homes are permanent fixtures on the land, which is our estate.
Indeed. Now,
all right, so
go for
it. Yeah, so the risk that the buyer is taking is that, that the person who's selling it is not saying that they own it.
But
they ain't saying that they own it.
Yeah, then they're not saying that they own it, but they're purporting through escheatment activities to claim some, to claim some fiduciary interest or some financial interest based on back taxes, or things of that sort. Right.
The municipal claim. That's how they backdoor.
The municipal claim.
They're saying that with the...
It's a claim of equity.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right.
And it's through these equity claims that they're using the civil municipal jurisdiction to basically force unlawful taxes against the people and keep them supporting and paying for their own servitude.
Right.
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 So it's until that we as a people are able to understand and understand that the same colonists who are the devil's rejects, so to speak, are still running the show. Islam, they're still here, using the same seats of power that we gave them as trading posts under the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, right, to operate and do their business. And it's through these operations and these municipal claims that they're using against the people to war with the people. Literally. Taking economic tools and mechanisms that are supposed to be services provided to the people, right? Like your water, like your power, like your gas, all right? These are services that collectively the people are supposed to be paying taxes for so that everybody is a beneficiary of it, right? Now, keep in mind that they established this whole program in fraud, in deceit, with a lack of full disclosure, all right? And most of these municipalities do not predate the republic of which they were established under. And I would say 99.9% of them don't pass constitutional muster when you really put them to the test, right? Because most of these quote unquote municipalities, not only are they not operating as government when they say that they're the city of, the town of, but then they further separated themselves in terms of being constitutional by outsourcing all of these services, right? When you ask most of the postal workers, they're not federal officers of the law. These are private individuals that work for a private company, okay, that so happens to have federal contracts, all right? Just like a federal contractor for construction would, you know, they get ready to build, say, a bridge, okay? And then Joe Blow Construction over here gets the job, all right? And then, you know, they've got the government contract, and now they're hiring employees under that government contract. Now, the employees themselves are not government employees, but the test, the measure, the bar is going to be that that bar for an employee, a third party who's working for the government, right? But you got to keep in mind, and this is kind of getting into the whole argument of the fallacy behind why some people talk down and you know, go crazy about the whole DOAO thing, is that these corporate bodies from the constitutional body are supposed to be constitutionally delegated certain authorities to do certain things and to not do other things. And those powers, you know, delineated and explained in detail are going to be in their charter, right? Or their contract that they have with the government. And it's going to set the limits and you know, whatnot of the job and the duties. So just as a point of order, I got some stuff going on in the background. I'm going to reset the classroom right quick. Hopefully you guys are still here, so just hang on real tight. I want to make sure everybody's still with us. So while that's going on, you guys who are going to see this later, not missing anything. So, you know, it is what it is. All right, so we're back. So I just wanted to make sure. So before we, you know, start really getting into everything, if you've been paying attention to anything up until this point, we've been talking about status in the estate. A couple of Latin phrases. I'm not going to try to bumble over them, but I will give you the page so you can look at them yourself. And I just want to read these because as we study, you know, these phrases, you know, they're very powerful at the end of the day. I really can't put it any other way. So this is page 1166 on the right-hand side. This one basically translates, it says, many things are allowed indirectly which are not allowed directly. All right. And with any one of these, I don't want to put any more emphasis over any one of them than the other one. These are just some things to keep in mind that, you know, in my studies and in seeking to try to understand why certain things happen, these principles probably could be, you know, pointed to as being at play. For any given number of reasons, and that's just, you know, from a psychosomatic standpoint to try to help make sense of the foolishness. You know, not to say that any of this stuff is really justifiable in that they're violating the Constitution. You know, they've been doing it for X number of years or whatever the time frame may be, and nobody's doing anything about it, and you know, what have you. But more so in the sense that if we don't pay attention to the details, we will always be subject to the, you know, the consequences of others who do, right? And the decisions of others who do pay attention to the details. But anyway, we are ignorant of many things. Oh, this multa ignoramus quae nobis non laterant si veterum lectio nobis fuit familiaris. Yeah, I said I wasn't going to mess over it, but, you know, there's power in the words. We are ignorant of many things which would not be hidden from us if the reading of old authors was familiar to us. Right? So when the prophet said, you know, Moors need to go back to that ancient mindset of that ancient foremothers and forefathers, and earlier we were talking about, you know, how Yeshua, the Logos, was studying the hieroglyphs as well as the ancient, you know, the sacred text. A lot of the things that happen, right, and that we seemingly can't explain, and I've been having this conversation and building with different Moors about it, is the fact that we are in patterns and cycles, which for whatever reason, and you know, we can't seem to figure out, are just simply that, patterns and cycles that are being repeated because on a collective basis, man, you know, and when I say man, I mean man and woman, but we as human beings collectively, as a human race collectively, are stuck in that cycle. You know what I mean? We're stuck in that revolution, so to speak. And, you know, in my past conversations of building with Brother Jonathan Bay, you know, in his wisdom, he's often said, well, you know, we don't really need any more revolution. You know, we need evolution. And that's an interesting concept. And at first I was like, oh man, you're like, no, like we need to, we need to revolt, we need to tear it down. You know, the systems of old cannot stand anymore. And that is all true, right? But then it hit me, it's like, all right, well, where and why, or what is the wisdom behind build to destroy, right? And it became apparent to me as, you know, 2016 Gregorian calendar year was winding out, what that phrase often, you know, implies, at least for me, it implied that as, you know, you want to see these other things, you know, pass away, you have to build up that which you want to see, you know, come about into fruition. And, you know, with the sign of the times, you know, ultimately being based on truth and the revealing of things, that's part of why I read what I read from chapter 14 here in the Red Book, in the Silent Brotherhood, the Mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood of the East, right? Because when the tempter comes and he comes to Yeshua, and just for I'll read this part again, verse 12 through 15, right? You are the victim of a cruel plot. And it's like every time somebody comes at you, it's not always a crisis. You know what I mean? A lot of times when I see these you know, well-to-do meaning Moors who oftentimes turn out to be other things, you know, I'm not going to, you know, point fingers or names or anything, but they're just, you know, all of them are dirty. I'll just put it like that. All of them are dirty, but dirty Moors, you know, lazy Moors, whatever. They come and they have issues, they got problems, and that's great, you know, to know that you're aware of those problems, but, you know, making me aware of them is not going to change anything. And asking me a million questions about more science isn't really going to help your specific issues. Nor does, you know, did I ever say I was here to answer all of your, you know, personal issues that you've been living your life for umpteenth, you know, number of years, and then all of a sudden you come to this revelation point in your life, and now you need help, and it's like now it's incumbent upon me, or anybody else for that matter, to just give it to you, you know. And you know, any of us who've been studying knows that man knows not by being told anything. So it's like anything I tell you is not going to stick, and it's not going to, you know, amount to anything if you yourself are not doing the work. You know, it's incumbent upon you, right? But I say all that to say, you are a victim. You are the victim of a cruel plot. The priests of Heliopolis, right, are jealous of your fame, and they have said that you will never leave these gloomy crypts alive. The higher priests do not go forth to teach the world, and you are doomed to temple servitude. Now, if you would be free, you must deceive these priests, must tell them you are here to stay for life. And then you will have gained all that you wish to gain. I will return, and by a secret way will lead you forth that you may go in peace, right? Now, this last part I want to back up and kind of touch on, in that, you know, you ever been in a situation, or like, you know, when you're in school and stuff, and people will say, all right, it's better to cheat than repeat, right? Or, you know, there's other little axioms that they'll come up with, but at the end of the day, they're trying to justify being deceitful, right? And oftentimes, you know, and without getting too deep into it, we will try to justify the buffoonery and nonsense, and just, you know, for lack of better terms, just so that I'm understood, and pardon me if you know, your virgin ears have never heard such language, but you know, everybody who knows me knows the business. The fuckery that goes on is beyond explanation sometimes, right? And it gets to the point where we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, we're strategizing, but nobody's doing anything, right? Or nobody seems to be doing what they claim to be talking about and strategizing about. And it's like, all right, well, when are we going to implement it? When are we going to do it? And, you know, it often comes about that most people aren't ready to do anything that they say that they're trying to do. Most of the time, and that's just been my experience. They say that they want to do it, but, you know, in their mind, they will come up with some justification as to why they either need to lie to themselves and say that, you know, they're not capable of it, or that it's outside of their reach, you know, or that they're not smart enough, whatever. And then they use that as a basis to just stop, and they cut themselves off, and they just don't do anything, you know. But what I've often found is that, you know, based on, you know, this little legal maxim here, and this is kind of getting back, and I'm jumping around, I know. This principle here, multa motu exercitatone facilius quam regulus percipius. And pardon me if I've, you know, mucked up the Latin, but this translates to, you will perceive many things much more easily by practice than by rules, right? Because oftentimes we want to look before we leap, and that's a great thing to do. You know what I mean? I commend you for thinking and you know, wanting to be, you know, forthright in having all your ducks in a row. But for me, and this is just how I made up, I learn more by doing, you know, because I'm a tactile, you know, kind of person, you know, and just because of the sheer, I don't know, genetic makeup of who we are as a people, once we begin to tap in, you know, to that self, our soul, we realize, one, that we're not alone in this journey called life, ever. Like, we're never, ever, 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 ever alone. I don't care, you know, where they put you, what hole, you know, what amount of sunlight you're not able to see, you're still not alone, right? And you still have a light within that you can turn up, so to speak, and you know, shine brighter with it. But that's more metaphysics. That's more outside of this series. But you know, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, so if you have the courage, right, and you're honest, when they come at you and they say here in verse 10, you know, verse 14 and 15, now, and if you would be free, you must deceive these priests and must tell them that you are here to stay for life, and then you have gained all that you wish to gain. I will return and by a secret way, right? When they start bringing up these secret ways, these chutes and ladders, and you know, all these other shortcuts, and will lead you forth that you may go in peace. That's a false promise of peace. That's false hope. Because we know that the only true peace that you can get is going to come from within. So anything outside of yourself is merely just a test, really, so that you can find, you know, that next step. You know, you can overcome that next step, that next part of yourself. Let me reiterate, yourself, right? To continue your journey to the next level of, you know, your higher self, right? And, you know, man's life journey is about going from his lower self to his higher self, or from his carnal nature to his more spiritual nature, right? From the spiritual to the, you know, from the physical to the metaphysical, you know, to the spiritual to the super spiritual, you know, from the physical to the mental to the super mental, or the super consciousness, right? And it's that journey of man from his carnal nature all the way up, you know, till he gets to that perfected level, right? And look, let's look at that. The perfected level, right? If we turn it, you know, we'll get to this circle 7, right? And let me just back up to verse 1 and read something, just, you know, just for thought. Quote, "The circle is the symbol of the perfect man, and the 7 is the number of the perfect man," right? And I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but we're going to, you know, we're covering some bases here, because I really want to make sure that you guys are getting what is about to happen. Because if you've been paying attention, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then you're just getting caught up. So we're touching on these things because I want you guys to realize that a lot of what you're looking for is already inside of you. It's not coming from anywhere external. What you need, you know, you already have. Now there are some well-seasoned breadcrumbs out here that may lead you in the right direction if you get lost, but what you ultimately need, you already have, right? You just got to be able to recognize that and do the due diligence to follow up on whatever it is you're doing or trying to do, right? So this test was really about, you know, this chapter and everything was about sincerity, right? And then I'll just read this first verse. So chapter 15, it says, Yeshua passed the second brotherhood test, justice. The Logos did not care to rest. He said, quote, "Why wait in this luxurious room? I need not rest. My Father's work upon me presses hard." Quote, "I would go," and this is verse 1, "I would go on and learn all my lessons. If there are trials, let them come. For every victory over self gives added strength." Right? All right. So I think Brother Nasir said he's back. His internet is shut down. But I just wanted to read that last part, you know, to just kind of mentally prepare you guys. Any trial, any test, and just getting back to what I was saying before, any test or tribulation is really just here to test you to see if you're ready to go to that next level, right? And they all, you know, they always in church and in the circle talk about, you know, God's got a blessing, you know, God's looking out for you, and, you know, this, that, and the third. Well, you know, we know from our studies where you meet God or Allah. And from the one-on-ones, it's in your heart, right? In your heart. That's where your soul dwells. That's where Yeshua said he would dwell, you know, everything else. So if the heart is at the center of this, of course, all of this is studying. It's all based in study. Islam. When you're going through these steps, you have to study to show yourself approved. And in your studies, once you know, after you study for so long, you're gonna have a test, right? That test is gonna come along, and you either pass or you fail, right? And if you paying attention, you know, the test could come in many different forms. It could be a written test, right? And on the written test, it could be short answer, it could be long answer, could be multiple choice, right? And then you got these other types of tests, you know, like experiential kind of test, or let's for the sake of argument and concepts, talk about masonry for a minute, right? So in masonry, just connotatively speaking, you would be an understudy, right? Or if you were a knight in shining armor, or a squire, and you wanted to become a knight, you know, wash some boots, wash some horses, you know, shine some shoes, take some shoes off some horses, put them on, whatever, you know, all the dirty work, right? And in the midst of that time frame, you would be working under and studying under someone in that field who will be teaching you the ins and outs, showing you the ropes and this and that, right? And in that, you would learn certain things, right, as the understudy. And then once you've learned enough as being the understudy, then you begin to get to practice, you know, that science or whatever craft that you've been studying under, you know, once you pass certain tests and whatnot. And typically when you looked at the old common law system, it was the teacher or the mentor that you were studying under that had to certify you to say that you passed certain things and you qualified to be able to move forward, so on and so forth, right? And again, there'll be a series of tests, right? So when we as a people, we as Moors, as Moorish metaphysicians and whatnot, you know, when we're studying the law, we're studying civics, and we're having these different issues and challenges, we don't need to be shying away from these issues as if they're issues, or these occurrences as if they're issues. Let me state it that way. Because, you know, it's something that's happening, but it's not necessarily a problem. But it is a challenge, you know, that needs to be met. Now, you can do some things with this challenge. You can be proactive, you can be reactive with that challenge, right? The things you can do to be reactive is, first, do nothing right now. Turn this off. Listen to nothing else anymore ever says. Don't read another thing. Just go off of what everybody tells you and just wait to see how that, you know, what that gets you, right? That's probably the most reactive thing you could do. The most proactive thing you could do is to take your time, study, right? And then see for yourself, right? Make your own measurements, right? Take your own documents and data, right? Draft your, you know, create your own surveys, right? Start collecting your data. Start making these surveys open to the public, right? Or things of that sort. But start doing those things that would bring about the change that you really want to see, right? If you are having a position with your property, you need a trust to protect your property. You don't need to ask how to set up a trust. You need to learn more about trust law. You need to look at your quote-unquote corporate jurisdiction that you have been associated with for the longest and see what they say about trust and how they recognize it. Because when you go down to the county and they start saying they don't recognize it, you need to know why they're saying these things. And then hold what they're saying up to the Constitution and see if it passes muster, right? Because I guarantee if enough Moors start finding loopholes or start finding rat holes, which the prophet said he plugged them all up, they start finding these rat holes in their own legal documents or quote-unquote laws, statutes, and ordinances and codes that are not, and I repeat, are not up to constitutional muster. Let's see how long it takes for them to change them. Let's see how long it takes for the legislature to figure out that they are out of bounds of the Constitution and subject to possible, I don't know, charges of treason, for theft and escheatment against the people. You know, just basic stuff. But let's not get too far off topic. All right. So, and this is another Latin phrase that I want to drop on you guys. Multa in injure communi contra rationem disputendi pardon me, pro communi utilite introducta sunt. Many things have been introduced into the common law with a view to the public good, which are inconsistent with sound reason, right? And I say that to say many things that they say are law, right? In the argument of being just for the people, or right and just in the interest of the people, on the basis of the common law or the modern law, statutory, whatever, it doesn't follow in line with common sense, right? And as we often say, common sense ain't always common, right? So if it doesn't make, you know, common sense, then it probably isn't constitutional, right? And you need to be going back and looking to see where and how that really fits. And if you can't make common, logical sense as to why this would be in place, right, or would be in play, then you probably want to start making an issue and, making a point of beating up that issue and making sure that whoever is trying to argue that point against you, from doing whatever constitutional sanctioned or reasonable activities you are allowed to do as a heir or as a beneficiary of this vast estate on your vast estate, then please be advised and just let them know that they're not free, right, from the swift justice of the law, of the swift hands of the law, right? Oh, this is another last Latin phrase I wanted to give y'all for today. Multi multa nemo omnia novit. Many men have known many things. No one has known everything. And again, that's why we say study, study, study. Study, 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 right? And you keep on studying. And the prophet said, when you ask what to study next, I would say study yourselves, right? And I'm just paraphrasing, of course. Don't get mad at me and try to beat me up because I ain't with it. So status is the next thing I wanted to read. And of course, this is something that you guys have probably heard time and time again. But going, thinking back to what we said to keep in mind with the state, and you guys who are watching this online and everything later, you can go back and rewind this and see what I'm talking about. But status, standing, state, or condition. So status is standing, status is the state, or status can mean the condition, right? The legal relation. So status also means the legal relation of individual to rest of the community. Status is the rights, the duties, status is the duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties, with which third persons and the state are concerned. While term implies relation, it is not a mere relation. It also means estate, because it signifies the condition or circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property, right? So, again, sticking with the theme of today, right, and status and the estate. Status and estate can be synonymous, right? We're talking about trust. And if you guys did your homework, which I'm about to pull up, so that we can start kind of looking at some things and just introduce some concepts for future studies and future classes, right? Let's share the screen. I just want to make sure that you guys are ready. All right. So we've got at the top here the flags. If you guys can see this, let me know in the chat. Or if you can't see me, let me know in the chat, and I'll check the bubbles. But we've got the flags here. That's pretty much standard operating procedure with things and the title and all that good stuff. So here's where you would name the trust, right? And this, be creative. Try to be mindful too of what specifically you want to focus on. Because that may have some basis to how you want to set up your trust and all that good stuff, or what types of commerce your family is known for, and things of that sort. But this is just style things, whatever. Not really anything pertinent that you have to do or can't do, but this is just kind of style things that you're at liberty to do, right? But what's in red is what needs to be changed for the most part, like any of the other template documents that you guys may be familiar with from RV Bay publications or the like. So we've got certain information here. You're making certain claims, right? Be aware of the bodies of law. Be aware of the actual land that you're describing, right? And what parts of it. One thing And where you can get the information from is from a lot of this information is going to be found at the county or at your wherever the records are kept for land. Some states still have what's known as a torrens system, and that is set up a little different from the deed system or the warranty deed system. And kind of going back to what Brother Nasir was saying about these warranty deeds. Before, whenever there's a transfer of property like that, you have to be able to prove and show proof of claim that you actually have a valid interest and transferable interest in the property, right? And I may be wrong in this, my assessment of this, because things change and it's wholly dependent on where you're at locally. But typically, when you're talking about joint tenancies or things of that sort, and this is just in my experiences of studying this topic, what's happened to us and how we've gotten to this point is that you've had a family that started out, say, maybe 5 brothers and sisters. They get some acres of land descended to them from their grandparents or family, what have you, right? As time goes on, most of the family, because we don't read or we were not taught to read and how to manage our property. When we get into a financial bind of any sort, we go rushing. We call our attorneys or our lawyers and we say, hey, remember that interest in that property, that my family owns, and they're supposed to be coming to me. How can I sell that, right? How can I, or how can I borrow against the interest on what I own or what's due to me? And they'll say, oh yeah, wonderful, we'll set something up, and then they come with the documents to draft up the necessary instrument that we were talking about earlier, known as a conveyance, right, or anciently known as an assurance. And they'll present this document, and you'll basically sign off your rights to the property to be able to transfer or make trades, what have you. And once you do that, you've got the opportunity, you got the time frame that you can come back, you can buy it back, or you can pay for it to satisfy the debt, what have you, that you've created against the property. And you can, retain ownership or title, right? But if you renege or if you don't pay, what have you, the state, and like we were saying earlier, they're backdooring your claim because you've got this, commercial, you've got this equitable interest that you've created against the property. And now, whoever the creditors are in this situation are saying, hey, time to collect, it's coming due. All right, you don't have the money, we're going to liquidate. All right, and then when that liquidation comes, they force what's known as the sheriff's sale to happen. And they go to the court, and they get the court, the magistrate to sign off on it to say that, hey, X, Y, and Z is happening. And then they use the power of the state, the power of the will of the people, through the gavel in the judgment of the quote unquote magistrate to say, hey, by the will of the people, move it, basically. And it's set to be sold, right? And then they'll give a certain amount of time for notice and whatnot, and then you have an opportunity to cure or challenge and whatnot, and then it goes to auction, and then at the auction, 5 can get 25, 25, 35, 40, 45, 50, 75, all right, sold to the man in the yellow hat, right? And bona fide purchaser, right? Equitable claim, equitable interest. Once that money's down, they've got, title, clear and perfect, all of that good stuff, right? And you can have a parade, and it's pretty hard, to fight at that level, right? Once it's gotten to that point. But as we back up and as we use our thinking caps, for all those who got your fezzes on, and pardon me, it'll be here soon enough. But as you think about it, again, the people who've been doing all of this the whole time, 9 times out of 10, have been doing it as a municipality, right? Municipalities are corporations. As so the owner's nationality, so goes the nationality of the company. right? So if the owner is Dutch, then the company is typically going to be known as a what? Dutch company, right? If the owner is Chinese or Japanese, then the company is said to be a Japanese company. Now, if that Japanese or Chinese company decides to bring in some investors from England, right, and a majority of the stakeholders for that company are English, then they would say that the company is majority English, right? Though it may be, it may have a Japanese or Chinese board or what have you, or it may serve a Japanese or Chinese clientele. The ownership is English, right? So the company, for the most part, is what? English. Why? Because the English people own majority share, and they would naturally dictate the directions and guidance of the company. And we're keeping this in mind because when we back up and we're talking about these, Cess Q Vi Trust Act 1666 and all that good stuff, and people talk about the creditors and becoming a secure party creditor and all this, public versus private and all that good stuff. Yeah, that's great. But keep in mind that all of these trusts, all of this was set up. Why? During the Reconquista, right? Coming out of the Spanish Inquisition, or in the midst of the Spanish, the continuation of the Spanish Inquisition, and that Reconquista period and edict coming down from the Pope and the kings to conquer the peoples, take all their land, take all their jewels and hereditaments and what have you. And it literally says that in their corporate charters now, on behalf of the empires, right? That they were, quote unquote, navigating and exploring for, quote unquote. So when we think about these corporate charters being the basis that they were operating on, then and now, it becomes difficult to find validity in the sale. Because from the beginning, right, when they made the Treaty of Amity and Commerce with the Moors, being the Europeans, the Christians, right, the European Christians and the Moors, they agreed, okay, that they would be occupying land under the auspices of doing business on our land, under the auspices of doing business on our land to do trade, not to be trading the land for the people, right? And when you get into the various concepts of quote unquote Native American or natural law, quote unquote ownership of the land is non-existent. So for us as Moors, our concept of ownership is more in line with trust and trustee law, because our position is that of stewards, right? Those who are here to maintain and keep in good working order as a custodian, right? Not for our own selfish gain or sales, but because, one, it was done for us previously by those who came before us, being our ancestors, but also for our posterity and those coming after, right? So that when we look 6 to 7, 8 to 9 generations beyond our lifetime, our generation, there will be provisions for those those who will be alive then, made now, okay? And those provisions will be secured by the will of the people. And that living will that we so often point to being the Constitution, right? And, along with the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, Treaty of Tripoli, so on and so forth. Because they all make up that living will, right? And as you study trust law, you'll find out that the trust, oftentimes, once it's been recorded, is a little bit harder to change over, because it has to be recorded. The updates have to be recorded, to be recognized. But when you're talking about the will, well, the will can be changed at will, right? That's why you could be on your deathbed and you can make an adjustment to your will and you can attach that to the trust. And that in most states, and again, go and look, don't take my word for it, go and look for yourself. in most instances, that will satisfy as a change, and that will satisfy as going towards the trust. And that's why it's so important. Old men, young, old women, who got retirement and up in age and whatnot. Don't be running around with all these little sugar babies and sugar mamas and whatnot, and putting everybody. You don't just go putting everybody in your business like that. Because at the end of the day, you messing around with this sugar mama and what have you. Your state, which, Florida and Land of Flowers and Alabama and Georgia, they kind of switch it up. I don't know about Georgia as much, but they had, for the longest, they had what was known as common law marriage still on the books. So you got this little live-in girlfriend, this little, hot and tight, mommy or whatever, you got going on. And I'm not going to say the other word because I know where that's coming from. Venus hot and tight, so I just say you got this hot and tight going on. Because for you, that's just eye candy, Studios Morris know what I'm talking about. But anyway, shouts out to Sarah Bartman. But you just got this eye candy lingering around, and it looks sweet, and at the end of the day, they a part of your estate now, because you got them hanging around and staying in your house like that. You know what I mean? You taking care of them. They spending money. They really don't have any income because you spending everything on them. So what's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. So all y'all quote unquote big daddies and whatnot, and like I said, sugar mamas and everything. Y'all better be careful with this when it comes to this property law, because when y'all get in y'all deathbed and the ones that you have been exploiting the most are the same ones you're dependent on to bring you a glass of water. I hope y'all ain't left too thirsty. And while y'all out here, setting thirst traps and whatnot for people, I hope y'all ain't left too thirsty when you need somebody. And see, you ain't even have to got to be old, because you could get into a wreck tomorrow, or get some weird type of cancer or whatever, And I'll touch on the cancers in a second. The weird cancers in a second, but anything can happen, and you could be bedridden for a while, and it's like you need to pay attention to your family so that if and when something does happen, you got somebody to bring you a glass of water so you can take your medication and you can feel better at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And if we don't have this general sense of brotherhood and camaraderie amongst each other, then civilization dies, people. Okay, that's it. All the culture and be it hip hop, be it African, whatever label you want to put on it, all of that's gone, right? Because there's not enough people around to keep it going. There's not enough honor amongst the people to even say that this is a culture worth respecting, And I'm just speaking in general here, but this is how, this is really what has to be understood and discussed. The philosophies of today, win the wars of tomorrow. And if we're not, dealing with sound philosophy, we're not dealing with sound facts, then it dies. The culture dies with the philosophy. It dies with the idea, with the thought of it. If people walk around thinking that Moors are a joke because Moors think Moors are a joke, Moors think Moor science is a joke, Moors think law is a joke, then everybody else is going to think it's a joke. You know what I mean? If Moors don't know it, nobody knows it. If you don't take human rights serious, no one else will take human rights serious. No one else is going to take your human peonage as being bad enough to do anything about it if you don't make it incumbent upon yourself to do it first. So it's like, don't come to Moors or don't come to me or anybody else crying at the 11th hour saying that you need help when you haven't done the work, when you haven't done the studies, when you haven't taken it serious as you thought it was then, as it is now. All right, let me reset because they're talking about the audio. But for those that, who are watching this later, you're going to see, if it's that serious, then act like it. Act like you know. Don't be playing around and then, at dark 30, won't help from somebody because it might not come the way you think it's supposed to be coming, or it's not going to come as fast as you think it's supposed to come, right? because man knows not by being told. And like we said before, we learn more from experience, not just from the rules, right? So, you know, just kind of jumping around. And like I said, we're going to get more into these things later on in more detail. But I just wanted to show towards the end here, it's got the space for the thumbprints. We've got several beneficiaries here. Let me back up. We've got the grantor, the grantee, right? This is supposed to be part of the quitclaim deed and conveyance of a loyal aboriginal paramount, clear and perfect title, right? Paramount, clear, and perfect. Look those words up. See what they mean in relation to title, right? When it comes to estate and trust, and you'll see more of what we're talking about here. So getting down here, and this statement right here, I just wanted to read for you guys, and this is going to change a little bit depending on where you are. Like I said, this is a template. So a version of estate and hereditaments, right? Notice there's a crest. We got the flags here. Notice to Elamosary or Elamosynary, depending on how you say it, whatever. Part of self. Foreign corporate entities, personnel, agencies, and corporate persons. Right? Now this was, for Pennsylvania, so I'm just gonna read it as is. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, County of Philadelphia, and the Associated Democracy States of are foreign corporate entities and franchises of the United States Corporation Company, a colorably converted and foreign entity whose sovereign capacity has been executed and dissolved since March 9th, 1933. Reference Emergency Banking Relief Act. Therefore, all public notaries are mere avowals to the superior status of the Moorish American nationals, heirs, and natural peoples of the land herein attributed. This informational intercourse shall not be deemed as, nor assumed as a reflection of, nor as a notion of being assumed, or nor assumed as a reflection of, nor a notion of being a subjective, known as being subjective to, or an admittance to the foreign, private, for-profit jurisdiction of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Right? And that's just because that's what we're talking about with this particular trust right here. And it would be different for whatever corporate jurisdiction you're dealing with, or state, right? And then it goes on to say, in the matters of jurisdiction, all personal, quote, quote, in personam, quote, quote, subject matter, and quote, quote, territorial jurisdictions, and quote, quote, reversion of estates are retained with the Moroccan Empire, Moorish National Republic, federal government, and its nationals, right? And the reason why we're saying that is because if you've been studying the reversionary piece, the reversionary piece and document that's out there floating around that we have available for anyone on the moorishdirectory.com, if you look at that and you've been studying it and been paying attention, that statement, the basic reversionary statement and the background history from it should lead you to realize what I was saying earlier about, and we're gonna touch into it, and then we're gonna look at this other. Let me bring up the other document right quick from the homework, and this is just some quick things I wanted to highlight, like I said, and then I wanna show you guys something. That's that. So that's the quick claim. Yeah, that's what I just showed y'all. In the trust. Pardon me. So, because we're talking about trust, you got to have the quick claim deed and you got to have the actual trust, right? And the quick claim deed is really just a basic conversion of title for the property itself. The trust is the vehicle of which the title is going to rest, right? So when you think about it like a ship, the trust is the vessel, that all the cargo sits within, and the deeds and the various things like your will and other instruments, other conveyances that you have would be attached to that trust, you know, in kind, right? Based on the terms and whatnot, and it had to be based on, you know, the conditions and of recognition based on where you're at, so that that property would be protected based on the trust and based on the state's law, federal law, you know, international law, so on and so forth, up and down chain of command. Let's leave it like that. So make sure you guys are looking at what I'm looking at in the classroom. So, pardon me, same thing at the top, same thing, trust, all of that good stuff. Indenture agreement made this date shall serve as a declaration of trust and shall continue for a term. You can make the term whatever, you know, however long you want to. This one says 25 years from this degree day. The agreement, quote, quote, solemnly affirmed by, right, straw, herein known as settler and party of the first part, and, you know, appellation, herein known as the first trustee or trustee party of the second part, under the name, you know, trust. With this agreement, quote, quote, the parties intend to create a pure trust organization for the benefit of the trust certificate unit holders and to identify, to accumulate, to purchase, and to hold any assets or hereditaments that become available, and with honor, you know, all of that good stuff, right? And then this is how you record it, right? And this is the information that you're going to have to put down based on where you are and, you know, all of that good stuff. And that's why I say the Torrent system, or whatever, you know, whatever the local system is on how they, you know, manage property. So some of the things we want to look at, or some things you want to pay attention to, are ecclesiastical maxims, right? Because we know that the common law comes down, you know, and all other laws descend from the ecclesiastical law. So you want to keep in mind those things and those points of order that would be controlling when it comes to property, and especially trust, right? Property dealing with trust. All right. Prerequisite for fee exemptions, enforcement of international constitutional treaty, 1786, 1787, 1836, Treaty of Peace and Friendship, Title 26, et sequa, 1941 International Organization Immunities Act, codified Title 22, subsection 288, usufruct, right? Non-obligatory federal tax exemption. Okay, and this is other stuff you just want to, you know, study and look at. You guys can see it for yourself, and we'll unpack it as time goes on. It's got the same jurisdictional statement here and same basic reversioner statements, right? And again, I want to emphasize this March 9th, 1933, right? The Federal Emergency Banking Act, right? And re-emphasize reading over the James Traficant speech, 93, I believe, talking about HJR 192. Okay, all these entities are bankrupt. All of them, you know, have been dissolved and are illegally, unlawfully doing business on the land. So how can an unlawful, bankrupt corporation continue to do business, right, in contradistinction to that business that is being carried out by the heirs, right, or, you know, the Moors in this case? Like, how can that happen if and unless the people themselves are complacent in that being the case, and they allow it to happen, right, without question, without any type of challenge, right, to the quote-unquote said authority. And just to kind of finish up and to kind of leave us off with some more tidbits to think about and ponder, right, and to kind of set this up, this is kind of getting to the Dungey case with Lincoln. Like I said, that Taj has been talking about and been studying, mentioning to the Moors for the longest, and we're finally able to kind of sink our teeth into some of the research that's been done on this topic, and it's been brought to light here. So Abraham Lincoln defends, and this will be available on the Active Moor site for all of those who are linked in with Moor Book in the Moor Learning Forum. This should be up under references after class this evening. So we're gonna read this. I'm gonna read this out, and then we're gonna open the floor for questions and any last comments that we've got, or I might have, or Brother Nasir may have, and we'll just we'll give our salutations until next time. All right. So take notes. Get your pen and pad out. And when this goes up, I want you guys to print this out, download it, share it with your family. Make 2-3 copies, take them to work with you, post them up, whatever. You know what I mean? Make this common knowledge, just like you did you do the weather, right? Or you do your latest flu vaccine. When it's time for the shots to come around, if you're into that type of poisoning. Abraham Lincoln defends William Dungey, Black Bill. So William Dungey was known as Black Bill, I guess. Versus Black Laws, 1855. Among 10 original Abraham Lincoln documents discovered last summer in the DeWitt County Courthouse of Illinois is a bond, quote bond for costs in William Dungey versus Joseph Spencer. Written, and of course we're going to be doing more research on this case and bringing out more data for you guys, but I just want, like I said, I want to read through this so that we'll have some new data points, really, and a clear understanding as to why they say that Lincoln was one of the last constitutional attorneys as well as lawyers to do his thing during his time. But anyway, pardon me, hold on. Yeah. Anyway, so among 10 original Abraham Lincoln documents discovered last summer in the DeWitt County Courthouse of Illinois is a bond for costs in the William Dungey versus Joseph Spencer case. Written but not signed by Abraham Lincoln, the bond was part of an interesting slander case. Family disputes that degenerate into slanderous name-calling feuds frequently appeared in antebellum Illinois circuit courts. Such cases reflected the intent of American slander law to safeguard an individual's good reputation in the community against petty character assassination. Now, let me just pause for a second to just keep in mind what's been going on with these dirty Moors and whatnot, and the character assassination in general that's been going on and has been the atypical calling card of this past quote-unquote corporate CEO election that we call the presidential election. That's pretty much all it's been, is character assassination, back and forth, right? And as Moors, we have a certain status, we have a certain level of respect that needs to be honored and respected, but it cannot be honored and respected if we don't, as a people, honor and respect it. And who do they often use to disrespect Moors? Morisco Negro dirty Moors who have no clue or who refuse to acknowledge the legacy of their own descendants. Right? Foolishness, right? So anyway, keep in mind that defamation of character is a very, 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 very real charge and tort in modern law, and it's handled very differently in based on the local laws, but most of the time it's on the books. And if you can't get it recognized under the Constitution, it's typically under the state law, and most of your state laws are probably a lot more intricate on how it's handled, and as far as the penalties, they're a lot more stiff than the federal laws. And that's just been in my research, but that of course all changes. And so 10 years from now, 5 years from now, I could be completely wrong. But anyway, 2 months from now, I could be wrong. That's why you study. Abraham Lincoln realized the value and reputation and declared in his first printed political speech that every man is said to have his peculiar ambition. I have no other, let me back up. Quote, every man is said to have his peculiar ambition. I have no other so great as that of being truly esteemed of my fellow men, end quote. One unique slander case Abraham Lincoln argued at the DeWitt County Circuit Court, Clinton in Clinton, Illinois, in the May and October of 1855, terms involved much more than a defamation of character, and suggested that Huck Finn's friend Jim might have reconsidered his plan of escape to freedom. Quote, I reckoned at by 4 in the morning I'd slip in just before daylight and swim ashore and take it to the woods on the Illinois side. And this is pretty much a quote, I believe, coming from Huckleberry Finn. And just kind of, again, to set the tone and set the tone and the atmosphere, so to speak, of what was going on at the time. So if you contrast the idea of going north to freedom and Illinois being a free state and this, that, and the third, this case and cases like the Dred Scott case give a clear distinction that was not always, the case, or was not always the safest assumption to make, right? Islam. So in August of 1851, William Dungey, a dark-skinned young man of Portuguese descent, notice where they say he was from, married a European woman, Joseph Spencer's sister. A family quarrel ensued, which became so bitter that in January 1855, Joseph Spencer, a European, claimed throughout the community that his brother-in-law, quote, Black Bill, was a Negro. And realized that Negro was a slanderous term, and, still is a slanderous term, but you've got, shouts out to the ancestor Frances Quest Wilson, Dr. Frances Quest Wilson, when she made the point of saying that basically we are so confused and lost in these days and times that they have taken terms that were legally, lawfully, and continue, and still on the books are legally and lawfully binding as slanderous terms, and made them and convinced us that they were terms of endearment. Why? So that they cannot be charged under them. Because if I, through my Stockholm syndrome, through my cognitive dissonance, am foolish enough to accept as standard and standard operations to answer to such things as Negro, Black, or Colored, these slave labels that are slanderous and that I could use as a basis for slander or defamation of my character, I no longer can use it as a basis if I'm saying it's a term of endearment and it's something that I'm going to hold on to, like I do my my rags, or my iron chains of bondage, right? I'm going to hold on to those things and those vestiges, like the prophet said, those vestiges and those things that allude to slavery. We're going to hang on to those for dear life, and in the process lose everything else that we hope to attain, right? All because of our own ignorance, right? And the prophet, instructed us and taught us that the only true sin and that sin means ignorance. And the only true sin was ignorance, right? Or to be misinformed or ill-informed. Okay? So let me finish this up and then, we'll keep it moving. Oh, it's only one page. Cool. So in August of 1855, William Dungey, a dark-skinned young man of Portuguese descent, married a European woman, Joseph Spencer's sister. A family quarrel ensued. All right, so we read that. Since 1819, Illinois state laws permitted quasi-slavery and restricted the immigration of free blacks into the state. As other northern states passed personal liberty laws granting additional rights to free blacks, Illinois state toughened its stance against them. The 1848 Illinois State Constitution required the General Assembly to pass, quote, pass such laws as will effectively prohibit, quote, free persons of color from immigrating to and settling in this state. All right, notice that phrase, persons of color. And what they were talking about with the new coin or the new dollar they're getting ready to come out with, they didn't say they were going to put a moor on there. They said they were going to put a person of color. Why? Because they're still trying to bastardize the people And they're trying to convince people to cling to those vestiges that allude to slavery. Why? Because if they can get you to cling to it, they can get you to accept it, it's normal. You can't sue them for defamation of character. You can't sue them for defaming you. Why? Because you've accepted it, and that's what you answer to. That's what you're saying you are. You're acknowledging that to be so. You're saying that you are black. You're saying that you're Negro. You're saying that you're colored. And you're answering to these things in a positive manner. Right? So that totally eliminates these arguments based on status and disrespect of that status and disrespect of your character, as a person of nobility and of noble heritage, right? You can't make that argument clinging to these labels of Negro, black, and colored. They don't apply to you. Why? Because you're claiming to be a piece of property, like a dumbass. Why? Nobody knows. Maybe because you like to be traded as human property. Okay? Maybe you like that. I don't. So don't come at me with that nonsense that you guys do so often. All right? So willfully. Right? It's just ignorance. Anyway, so pass such laws as will effectively prohibit free persons of color from immigrating to and settling in this state. End quote. Those prohibitions against human rights were passed as the black laws, not Black's Law Dictionary, but as the black laws, and went into force on February 12th, 1853, the same date of the future emancipator Lincoln's 44th birthday. William Dungey faced losing not only his reputation, but his marriage, his property, and his right to remain in Illinois. Section 10 of the 1853 Black's Law stated that, quote, every person, or Black Laws, my bad, pardon me. Section 10 of the 1853 Black Laws stated that, quote, every person who shall have 1/4 Negro blood shall be deemed a mulatto, end quote. William Dungey retained Abraham Lincoln to quash the possibility that he might be judged, quote, a Negro, and therefore suffer the severe penalties under the 1853 Black Laws Act. Abraham Lincoln filed his declaration charging Joseph Spencer with slander on April 17, 1855, and sought 1,000 notes or $1,000 in damages. A game of legal chess occurred during the first hearing in May. Joseph Spencer's attorneys, right? Let me jump back and make sure y'all can still see me. Y'all still here in the chat. Can y'all hear me? Y'all just let me know in the chat. So, jumping back into it. So, Joseph Spencer's attorneys, Clifton H. Moore and Lawrence Weldon, also Europeans. I think we're having some issues over here on the Ustream. Let me or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. Islam? Alright, just had to mute that person out right quick. Alright, we got a full house. Alright, that's who it is. Alright, and just for housekeeping purposes, guys and gals, if you're wanting to view and everything, just mute yourself out and cut the video for a minute, as it takes up on the bandwidth, and it cuts out on the experience for everybody else that's in the room with us. So if you could, just kind of self-manage that for me. Thank you, guys and gals. Thank you. And Brother Nasir, if you're in the building, just text me or whatever, or type me in the chat so I'll know, and I'll kind of come through and see who's who. based on that. All right. So we've got a couple people typing. So we're reading it from the part of Divine Wonder from the Prophet. Sorry, guys, for those who listen to me reading. All right. So he said he's in here. Islam, is that you? All right. Maybe not. Islam, is this you? Okay, was it the first one? Check, check. Unmute yourself, please. Because I got two. All right, now I see which one now. Islam. Brother Nasir?
Yeah, Islam.
Islam. All right, cool. Cool, got you
I'm
in
trying to
there.
brighten up.
Yeah, please get some more light on you, please, while I'm finishing this. So, all right, all true Moors, let me back up. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, if they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in. Let me mute you out right quick, Nasir. With that, I wanted to kind of back up, so to speak, because we've been talking about it for the past year and a half, 2 years, or longer, depending on how long you've been studying and keeping up with, you know, the activities and goings-ons of Moors and active Moors in particular. We've been talking about this wonderful world of trust and trust law, right? And in that, there are numerous pitfalls. There's all types of leverage, so to speak. But at the end of the day, what is it that you're really doing? What is it that you're dealing with? You know what I mean? And to really have a good conversation about that, you know, I could sit here and read everything that we've got up and go through all of that rigmarole, but that's not really what I think would be best for us right now. Being that it's up there, everybody's grown, you know, we can kind of get through that how we want to. But somebody dipped out for that. But if we're having issues, or if it gets a little choppy, just let me know in the chat, and I'll, you know, reset on my end, and we'll go from there. Try to make sure that everything's smooth on you guys end, because I'm gonna be doing a lot of back and forth with the screen sharing. So I want to make sure that you guys are up with me in the classroom here. All right. So just everybody who hasn't already checked in, just let me know in the chat who you are, where you're from, type stuff, just so I have an idea who I'm talking to, if you will. And if you can't find the chat, it's the little it's a little bubble at the bottom right hand corner, typically, depending on what you're looking at it on or how you're viewing this. But anyway, that's just housekeeping work. So let me back up, because I wanted to get into some special things, some special matters that I think we had to touch on. And I often don't do certain things for, you know, the sake of time, but being that we are going through these trying times, some of this stuff is going to be rehashed for some of you Moors, for the rest of you Moors. It may be something new that you're hearing, and either way, you know, we need to be paying attention. So we've got, hold on, Islam. Peace. You in the class yet? Or you trying to get in? Send you the link. All right. Just check the background, but I'll send it to you right quick. All right, bet. Peace. All right. So we got one more trying to get in. Trying to make sure that he gets in. He said he might have something for you guys. So we've got, all right, Betty O'Gale out in Tennessee area. Peace. Tamosi. All right. Islam, Nisha Bay in the house. All right. Everybody check it in on time. All right. So I'm waiting on Brother Nasir to get in. so that he can participate with us this evening. But while we're waiting on him to try to get in, because that was him that just called me, while we're waiting on him, I want to read some things into the record, get some stuff out there and up into the ethers. And like I said, this is something that is supposed to be read at every meeting, you know, and like I said, I don't typically do it because of the sake of time and because, you know, we all pretty much should know this by now if we're active and been paying attention in Islam. But all right, so this is the divine warning by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Prophet warns all Muslim governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. All right. Says, I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must take its course. Any member. Friday class. Even though my face can't really be shaped, and I'm patient. How y'all doing, family? New Naji Ill. Sponsored by moorishregency.com, activemoor.com. Listen to some tunes that you picked up on willofallah.com. I believe this is that Wild album.
I'm tired of looking through the eyes of the Satan under eyes. My lies find me trapped with temptation. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I fear I'm about to fall. Like in fear when I'm hard to yawn. In the dark, I see fear, I see flares as I hear the roar. My fears keep straying from the Lord. Some things I'm praying for, better days. Celebrate with real family holidays. Like all the days I slept. Gotta seize that, gotta ease back, gotta clean my mess. Back to reality, what do I see? It's the man JB.
Now, I'm looking it up
right in the hood. My soldiers living every day to the fullest. Fear no man, just loading my bullets. It's like a jungle sometimes. It make me wonder how I resist the urge to pull it. My trigger, my lick though we don't play, but we gotta teach the youth the truth to live a better way. War equals
I don't want to kill too much time. You know what I mean? We may strike out some people up in here.
So now we take things a little more serious. No cop or judge instilling fear in us. We the gods on earth. Since birth we learned to put God first. Stay blessed up. Music on the turf, stay vest up. The ongoing cycle of a young buck. The unit full of G's, no 50 cent. It's GCP, the streets know it. As I sit back and recollect on past times when I was too young to handle, trying to avoid the guilty crimes. I used to just write lyrics and bubbling beefs was on my mind. It's all about having fun.
Yeah, New Naji Ill, it's the Friday class. We just getting everything together, man.
I had those feelings to 93 from 89, and I hated school, though I thought it was necessary. But niggas left. I was on the hot block daily, and I seen nothing blatantly happen in my face, and it hurts like a bitch. And those memories I can't erase. Try not to dwell on the past.
So a lot we gotta catch up on. A lot going on.
It's not a wise inquiry. Need to turn a new page, start a new chapter in this book called The Stage. We ain't afraid of the
what's up? Peace and love.
Mine you got captured, your brain's already in a cage.
Peace and love. Just a point of order right quick. If you could, you know, make sure you turn off your audio in the video for me, just to save the bandwidth and to keep everything, you know, even for everybody else. Even Steven, as they say. But towards the end, we'll open the floor back up for questions and comments. But I'm gonna let this. Alright, so we're gonna go and get it started. It's 6:34. Try to go till about, you know, 8:30 Eastern Standard. Again, I'm New Naji Ill. This is the Friday class. Alright, we got Sister Barbara Bay in the house. It's live. Alright. So yeah, we got a lot of things going on. A lot of stuff been going on in the background. You know, we had to take some time out, take care of some things, make sure that everything is going the way it needs to be going. You know how that is as far as your personal life and things of that sort. But yeah, so we're getting into a new cycle, y'all. It's not quite 2017, unless you've been following the Gregorian calendar, but you know, it's going back to that ancient mindset. I knew you really don't start till March. You know, because when spring has sprung and all of that good stuff. So didn't want to get too much into that, but we might delve into a little bit more metaphysics later on today. But today I really wanted to try to focus and harp on the issues at hand, family. And one of the biggest ones that we've seen, and you know, working here, doing the amazing work that we're able to do over here at Moorish Directing at themoors.com. We have a very special seat, so to speak, when it comes to seeing and hearing the different goings-ons of the peoples, you know, within the nation. Because as so often is the case that we find when we're assisting and helping one another, is that we are on the front line, so to speak, of the issues that are, you know, affecting us all, right? So